Thank you very much, Ari Shavit, for your powerful words. Now for our third panel session of the day on the question, a Jewish democratic state or democracy for the Jews, which will be moderated by Haaretz senior editor Noah Landau, who is currently a fellow at the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism in Oxford. Noah, over to you.
Good afternoon. So, Jewish and democratic, that's a big question so late after lunch. And of course, after Ari Shavit, there's always an anticlimax, but we'll do our best. So, it seems like this big old question about Jewish and democratic is now almost our own tricky version of the chicken and the egg. There is just no simple solution. Most people would probably agree we still need both, but the question is what happens when they obviously collide? Then, which comes first? It also seems that the older this predictable question gets, the more it becomes crucial to our identity as a nation. Manifestations of racism towards minorities, the attempts to limit speech, the assault on the justice system, the nation-state bill, and of course the ongoing control over the Palestinian territories. This is just a tiny list of recent growing threats on this delicate balance. In recent Pew Public Opinion survey, published this recent March, 79% of Jewish Israelis supported preferential treatment for Jews. In this kind of environment, is this balance realistic at all? And when these values collide, which comes first? So to try and answer this huge question and solve all these problems within one quick hour, I want to invite our panelists, Yohana Plesner, the president of the Israel Democracy Institute. MK Stav Shaffir, from the Labor Zionist Union. Amal Elsana Alh'jooj, Director of North American Relations at Alh'jooj and NIF board member. And Melanie Phillips, senior columnist for The Times. So we'll start maybe with Yohana. When these both values collide, which comes first?
Well, press anything? Yep. Maybe I'll take yours. Well, the whole notion of Israel, and it's been articulately defined in the Declaration of Independence, is the combination. The Declaration of Independence doesn't actually define Jewish and democratic, but we have an entire paragraph that actually defines what a democratic state is all about. And this has been also manifested ever since in several judgments, both of the Supreme Court, in Knesset legislation, including the basic laws of 91 that define clearly Israel's role as a Jewish and democratic state, and in our culture, self-perception, and so on. What we've seen as we measured those concepts in the Israel Democracy Institute, that over the past, I would say 5 years, we've been measuring and asking the same questions for the past 13 years. Increasingly, Israelis feel that they have to choose, and that maybe echoes your question. They feel that they have to choose between those concepts, and then from a vast majority that supported the combination, we're seeing an increase in those who first and foremost see the role of Israel as a democracy, and those who see it as a Jewish state, and are no longer as committed to the combination of Jewish and democratic. And maybe in this I can end this answer. I don't see those two values as conflicting values, because, and perhaps as long as Israel has a solid Jewish majority, the Jewish majority wants Israel both to be a Jewish state, Jewish not in the religious sense, but in the national, cultural, symbolic sense, and of course a democratic state. And we've achieved to sustain this combination so far, although there are challenges.
Thank you. We'll see, maybe your microphone works now, or yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, Stav. So, Yohanan says, as long as we have a Jewish majority, maybe in the end, that's the key issue here. When we say a Jewish democratic state, is it a democracy as long as the Jews are the majority?
First of all, the fact that we need to fight to have a Jewish majority, which means that we need to end the conflict and reach a two-state solution. I completely agree with Ari Shavit's definition, two-state vision. That's the foundation. Whether it can be Jewish and democratic, of course. I think that Israel is a vibrant democracy, and I think that it can continue and become a better democracy. But I'll tell you something different. I think that one of the essence of having a strong democracy depends on us having a very strong progressive camp in Israel. And if there's something, if I can also express a little bit of self-criticism here, but if there is something that we're really missing, is that progressive camp. And that's the thing that happened to Israeli politics. That's the one thing that really threatens, of course, together with the big political question of the conflict, but the other thing internally that threatens democracy is what happens to our political system. And the fact that our political system today has a politics that when the strongest political agenda goes more and more to the populist talkback kind of politics instead of to create politics of ideas. And as you can also probably see here, definitely see here in Britain, I think is the biggest threat. And in order to create a stronger democracy, we need to rebuild a progressive camp. We need to say, and I just talked about it for about an hour, to call for the next election to redefine that camp. Today we go, the left wing, the progressive, the democratic camp, goes in four different parties that basically say the very same things, the very same messages, but doesn't go together. Instead of going together, we see ourselves mostly fighting amongst ourselves, fighting with each other, many times adopting the narrative that the right is using, adopting the narrative that created a camp that hardly talks about security, that hardly talks about our political challenges, that doesn't confront the Israeli public with a choice. If we want Israel to make a progress, if we want Israel to remain a Jewish and democratic state, it's our role, and by our, I mean my political camp, to confront Israel with that choice. What do we want to be? Do we want a two-state solution, or do we want to go for annexation, as our prime minister is leading us to? These are the two choices, not making a choice. And you had the referendum last week, but we're going through a referendum on the two-state solution every day. And what's happening while we're not making decision is that it's not just that we stay on the same place. It's not that the status quo is going to remain as it is today. We're actually making a choice, and that choice is annexation. That's the choice that the government is making, but not by not taking action. That's the choice that's going to decide whether Israel will remain Jewish and democratic or no Israel at all. This is the choice. And if we want to protect democracy, but not just democracy, we want to protect the future of Israel, we have to make Israelis aware of that choice. We have to go for the next election, promising to Israel that we're going to be in one political bloc, defending their choice of two-state solution, defending their right to make decisions, Today, what's happening to politics and what's happening to our democracy is that no decisions are being made. And by not making these decisions, we're dragging Israel into a condition where the Zionist vision is under great risk.
Thank you. So Stav is already thinking about the next election. Melanie, do you agree a progressive camp? Is that the answer?
I think every democracy needs to have every point of view represented, and to have clear opposing points of view, I think, is extremely healthy. And I think if you have one party which basically has no opposition, that is terribly, terribly unhealthy and very dangerous for a democracy. But apropos of, I mean, if we're getting into the agony of Israel's internal political system, I don't think this is solved by simply saying we need or Israel needs a progressive camp. I think that Israel's democracy is ill-served by the type of democracy that it has, which is a particularly extreme form of proportional representation. That sounds like it is extra democratic because it gives everybody a voice in a country which has clearly different camps within it. It gives every camp a voice. And in theory, that sounds great. In practice, it's an absolute disaster because, as we can see, it creates, first of all, untransparent government, in which governments are created through backstairs, backdoor deals. And the lack of transparency creates corruption. And Israel is a fundamentally corrupt democratic polity because of its system. Secondly, it creates governments which are not stable, which is bad in itself. Thirdly, it creates governments which are held hostage by tiny, unrepresentative groups, whether they are the Haredim or anyone else, who basically hold government hostage and create a situation which in theory is ultra-democratic, but in practice is not democratic at all, because it's a tiny, unrepresentative sample of the population dictating the course of the government. So I think there is a fundamental need for fundamental political reform. Unfortunately, as far as I can see it, the entire Israeli political establishment is variously in hoc to the forces that wish to retain the status quo, corrupt and undemocratic as it is, which I think is a source of some despair. But I think that Israel desperately needs a system which, I realise I'm in danger of